Welcome back, everyone, to another extraordinary journey into the world of gem, where history, mystery, and ancient belief collide in ways most people have never imagined. Today, we'll explore 10 sacred gemstones that were once worshipped, feared, or celebrated in rituals across the world. From stones believed to channel the power of the sun, to gems thought to guard the soul on its journey beyond death, each of these treasures blurs the line between myth and reality. But here's what makes this countdown different. The gemstone at number 1 is not the one you expect. It doesn't dazzle with brilliance like a diamond, nor burn with fire like a ruby. Yet for centuries, it was considered a divine gift, capable of shaping destinies. Don't skip this video, because overlooking this stone might mean misunderstanding how ancient civilizations measured value and power, and it could even change how you think about gemstone investment today. If this is your first time here, welcome to the World of Gem community. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, because every week we uncover hidden histories, forgotten legends, and the mysteries behind the world's most fascinating stones. Stay with me until the very end, because the story of the number 1 gemstone may reshape the way you look at gems, not just as ornaments, but as forces that once ruled empires and guided the fate of kings. Coral, the ocean's sacred gemstone that protected sailors and inspired myths. Imagine standing on the shores of the ancient Mediterranean, watching divers disappear into the deep blue in search of a treasure not carved from rock, but grown from the sea itself. This treasure is coral, the sacred gem of the ocean, a living stone once believed to shield sailors from storms, guard children from the evil eye, and channel spiritual power in rituals across continents. If it surprises you that coral, not crystal, held such reverence in the ancient world, leave a comment, because your reaction helps keep this remarkable story alive. Geographically, coral's story begins in the sea. The finest red and pink varieties have long come from the Mediterranean waters near Italy, Tunisia, and Algeria, while equally prized corals are harvested in Japan and Taiwan. In Tibet and the Himalayan regions, coral became sacred not because it was found locally, but because it traveled along ancient trade routes like the Silk Road, transforming from an ocean jewel to a ritual treasure in temples thousands of miles from the sea. Harvesting coral was never easy. Ancient divers would risk their lives plunging into depths where oxygen and light grew scarce, cutting fragile branches from coral reefs. Unlike hard crystalline gems, coral is the calcified skeleton of living marine polyps, forming branching structures that echo the flow of the sea. Once brought ashore, these branches were polished, shaped into beads, or carved into amulets used in both adornment and sacred ceremony. Coral's beauty lies in its colors, from soft blush pink to fiery crimson, with the deep blood-red oxblood coral commanding the highest value. Because it cannot be faceted like sapphire or diamond, coral was often polished into smooth, glowing forms or strung into necklaces and prayer beads. Its organic origin gave each piece a sense of individuality. No two branches ever the same, just as no two seas are alike. Why does coral hold the 10th place in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it embodies a bridge between worlds, land and sea, life and spirit, myth and reality. The Romans believed coral necklaces could protect children from evil spirits. Mediterranean sailors carried it as a safeguard against storms. In Tibetan Buddhism, coral became a conduit of life energy, incorporated into prayer wheels and rosaries. Unlike any other gem, coral reminded ancient people that the sea itself could give them protection and power. That is coral's greatest gift, not simply its beauty, but the belief that something living from the ocean could continue to guard, inspire, and heal long after it was removed from the reef. If you've ever seen coral jewelry or heard stories of its sacred uses, share your experience in the comments, because every story adds new depth to this ocean-born gem. And before we close, here's one final thought. By the year 2026, do you think another gemstone could surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Continue this discussion not only here on YouTube, but also in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future are already sparking fascinating conversations. Topaz, the ancient stone of clarity that channeled the power of the sun. Imagine standing inside an ancient Egyptian temple where priests lift gemstones toward the rising sun, believing they hold fragments of divine light. Among them gleams topaz, a gem revered for clarity of mind and purity of spirit. To the ancients, topaz was more than decoration. It was a stone of vision, of truth, of the power to dispel enchantments. And if it surprises you that topaz once carried such spiritual weight, leave a comment because your thoughts help uncover the forgotten side of this remarkable gem. Geographically, topaz has been found in many regions. Still, its ancient fame originated in Egypt, particularly on Zabargat Island in the Red Sea, where early civilizations confused topaz with peridot, attributing both stones with mystical status. Today, significant deposits are mined in Brazil, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Russia, and Nigeria. But the lore of Egyptian and Roman topaz remains unmatched. In antiquity, these stones traveled along trade routes, eventually ending up in royal treasuries and being used in sacred rituals from India to Rome. Mining topaz is unlike extracting softer stones. Topaz crystals form within granite and volcanic rocks, often in pegmatite veins. Ancient miners would break apart large stones, carefully freeing the elongated crystals hidden within. Even in early times, cutters polished topaz into smooth gems, noting its unusual hardness compared to other stones. It was strong, durable, and radiant, qualities that only reinforced its sacred role. Topaz comes in a range of colors: golden yellow, icy blue, fiery orange, and even pink. The ancients, especially in Egypt and Greece, particularly prized golden yellow topaz, associating it with the light of the sun, gods Ra and Apollo. Clear topaz, polished into talismans, symbolize truth and honesty. Its crystals are often prismatic, with natural striations along their length, giving them a geometric beauty even before they are cut. Why does topaz hold the 9th spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because across cultures, it represented clarity in both mind and soul. Egyptian priests believed it absorbed the sun's divine energy. The Romans thought it could protect against enchantments and poisons. In India, topaz was set into jewelry as a symbol of blessings for long life, beauty, and intelligence. It was not merely a gem of wealth, but a stone woven into the spiritual fabric of multiple civilizations. Perhaps topaz's true power lies in this duality, both practical and mystical, both durable and divine. It served not just as an adornment, but as a bridge between human belief and celestial light. If you've ever worn topaz or seen its luminous colors, share your impressions in the comments, because each story deepens our understanding of how this stone continues to inspire. And before we close, let me leave you with one question. By the year 2026, do you think another gemstone could rise to surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Join this conversation not only here on YouTube, but in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future are sparking fascinating discussions. Amazonite, the warrior's stone of courage and ancient power. Imagine a gem the color of a tranquil river, yet one that ancient warriors carried into battle as a symbol of strength and fearlessness. This is Amazonite, the so-called warrior's stone, revered for its ability to calm the spirit while emboldening the heart. Named after the legendary Amazons, fierce women warriors of myth, Amazonite has long been associated with courage, protection, and sacred ritual. And if it surprises you that such a serene-looking stone was once linked with battle and power, leave a comment because your reaction adds to the living story of this remarkable gem. Geographically, Amazonite is found in several parts of the world, with some of the most celebrated deposits in Russia's Ilmen Mountains, Colorado in the United States, Brazil, and Madagascar. Ancient pieces of Amazonite jewelry have been uncovered in Egyptian tombs, suggesting it was used as early as 2000 BCE. Archaeologists believe the stone's distinctive green-blue hue made it a prized material for ritual amulets and ornaments, even when trade routes carried it far from its source. Mining Amazonite is tied closely to feldspar deposits, as it is a variety of microcline. Ancient miners extracted it from granite veins and pegmatite formations, carefully chiseling it out as blocks or smaller crystals. Though relatively soft compared to diamonds or sapphires, Amazonite was easy to polish, and artisans valued it for its smooth finish and striking natural color. What makes Amazonite so unique is its appearance. Its shades range from soft turquoise to vivid blue-green, often streaked with white. When polished, it has a silky sheen that seems to glow from within, reminiscent of flowing water. Unlike transparent gems, Amazonite is typically opaque, giving it a bold, solid look well-suited for beads, cabochons, or carved amulets. Many ancient pieces were engraved with symbols and worn as protective charms. Why does Amazonite hold the 8th spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because across cultures, it embodied the paradox of serenity and strength. The Egyptians believed Amazonite could heal the heart and enhance truth in ritual speech. The Mesopotamians and later peoples used it in protective talismans, connecting it with divine energy. And through its legendary tie to the Amazons, it became a gemstone of warriors. A reminder that courage can exist alongside calm, and strength can flow as quietly as a river. Amazonite's power lies in this duality, its ability to soothe and strengthen simultaneously. Even today, many consider it a stone of harmony, believed to balance emotions while encouraging bold and decisive actions. If you have ever seen or worn Amazonite jewelry, share your story in the comments, because every personal connection adds to the legacy of this warrior's gem. And before we close, let me ask you one final question. By the year 2026, do you believe another gemstone could surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Let's continue this discussion not only here on YouTube, but also in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where conversations about the gemstone of the future are more alive than ever. Jet, the mourner's gem that linked the living with the dead. Imagine a gemstone so dark it seemed to swallow the light, carried not in battle or ritual of triumph, but in moments of grief and remembrance. This is jet, known as the mourner's gem, revered since antiquity for its power to bridge the living with the dead. Unlike crystalline stones, jet is formed not from the pressure of minerals, but from ancient wood that has fossilized over millions of years. If it surprises you that such a humble origin produced one of the most sacred gems of mourning, leave a comment, because your reflection adds new depth to this remarkable stone. Geographically, jet has been discovered in many parts of the world. Still, the most famous sources are located in northern England, particularly in Whitby, Yorkshire, where jet became central to Roman rituals and later Victorian mourning traditions. Other notable deposits can be found in Spain, Turkey, China, and the United States. Archaeological evidence indicates that jet was carved into beads, amulets, and pendants as early as the Bronze Age, demonstrating its spiritual significance long before the advent of written history. Mining jet required no grand quarries or dangerous shafts. Instead, ancient gatherers often found it washed up along coastal cliffs or buried in soft shale beds. Jet is essentially lignite, ancient driftwood compressed into a dense, coal-like substance. Its softness made it easy to carve, yet when polished, it revealed a mirror-like black surface that seemed to hold an almost supernatural glow. Jet's color and form made it instantly recognizable. Deep black, sometimes with subtle brown undertones, it was rarely cut into facets. Instead, it was shaped into smooth beads, cabochons, and carved talismans. Romans strung it into necklaces to ward off evil, while in medieval Europe, jet was believed to repel demons and protect the soul. By the 19th century, Queen Victoria made jet jewelry iconic during her mourning period for Prince Albert, cementing its association with grief and remembrance. Why does jet hold the 7th spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it is the gemstone of passage, used in funerary rites, worn by mourners, and believed to connect the living with their ancestors. To the ancients, jet was not merely an ornament, it was a spiritual anchor during life's darkest moments. Its presence in graves and temples across Europe speaks to its enduring role as a sacred mediator between worlds. Jet's most significant power lies in its simplicity, a stone born from once living trees, transformed by time into a relic of memory. If you've ever seen Victorian jet jewelry or heard of its role in ancient burials, share your thoughts in the comments, because each story carries forward the legacy of this mournful gem. And before we close, consider this question. By the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Let's carry this conversation beyond YouTube into gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future continue to stir fascination. Spinel, the imposter king's jewel that fooled empires. Imagine standing before a royal crown, dazzling under torchlight, its centerpiece a magnificent crimson gem. For centuries, rulers believed it was a ruby, a stone of power and passion. Yet history later revealed the truth. It was not a ruby at all, but a spinel. This imposter king's jewel has fooled emperors, shaped empires, and carried legends across continents. And if it surprises you that one of history's most treasured stones was long mistaken for another, leave a comment because your insight adds to the living legacy of this remarkable gem. Geographically, spinel occurs in many of the same regions as ruby, which explains centuries of confusion. Important deposits include Myanmar's Mogok Valley, Sri Lanka, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan's Badakhshan region, where the famous Balas rubies were actually spinels. In fact, some of the largest and most famous rubies in royal collections, like the 170-carat Black Prince's ruby set in the British imperial state crown, are not rubies at all, but spinel. Mining spinel in antiquity was challenging because it grew in the same marble and alluvial deposits as ruby and sapphire. Miners often could not distinguish between them. Both stones shared a fiery red hue caused by chromium. Without modern gemology, the two were considered the same. Only centuries later, with scientific study, did spinel finally gain recognition as its own gemstone. Spinel's colors are part of its allure. While most famous in shades of deep red, spinel also appears in pink, purple, orange, and even cobalt blue. Its crystals are often octahedral in shape, sharp and geometric, contrasting with the rounded forms of many other gems. Faceted spinel reveals brilliance comparable to sapphire, with a sparkle that earned it a place in the crowns of emperors and kings, even if its true identity remained hidden. Why does spinel hold the 6th spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it is the stone of mistaken identity that still carries immense symbolic power. For centuries, it was celebrated as ruby, worn in coronations, gifted as tribute, and set into legendary treasures. Its sacred role was not diminished by misidentification. Instead, it shows how human belief in a gem's symbolism can outweigh its classification. Spinel was ruby's shadow, yet it shared ruby's aura of authority, vitality, and divine fire. Perhaps spinel's most significant legacy is this. It reminds us that truth does not erase meaning. Even as gemologists revealed its distinct identity, spinel retained its place in history as a royal jewel. If you have ever seen or owned spinel jewelry or encountered its story in royal collections, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective helps illuminate this gem's dual nature. And before we close, consider this question. By the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Join this debate not only here on YouTube, but also in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where conversations about the gemstone of the future are just beginning. Chalcedony, the speaker's stone, that gave voice to ancient rituals. Imagine standing in the Roman Forum, where orators raised their voices to sway crowds and senators alike. Hidden beneath their robes, many carried a quiet secret, a polished blue-gray stone called Chalcedony. Believed to grant eloquence, calm anger, and strengthen the voice of truth, Chalcedony earned its name as the speaker's stone. And if it surprises you that ancient leaders trusted a gemstone for their power of persuasion, leave a comment because your thoughts bring this forgotten legend to life. Geographically, Chalcedony is abundant, yet ancient peoples treated it with reverence. It was mined in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, along the shores of the Bosporus near the town of Chalcedon from which the stone takes its name. Other deposits were found in India, Greece, and Italy, where it traveled along early trade routes to temples and courts. Archaeological finds show that Chalcedony beads, seals, and amulets were used across Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean as early as 4000 BCE. Mining Chalcedony was far less perilous than digging for diamonds or rubies. The stone occurs in volcanic and sedimentary rocks, often forming as nodules or layers within agate deposits. Ancient quarry workers would break apart boulders to reveal the smooth, waxy interiors of Chalcedony. Its relative softness made it easy to carve, while its translucence and subtle glow made it ideal for seals and amulets engraved with sacred inscriptions. Chalcedony's beauty lies not in brilliance, but in serenity. It appears in hues of milky blue, misty gray, soft white, or pale lavender. Smooth and opaque, it was rarely faceted. Instead, it was polished into cabochons or carved into intaglios, which were used as signet rings. Under light, Chalcedony carries a quiet radiance, a glow that seems to calm the eye and soothe the spirit, perfectly matching its reputation as a stone of peace and speech. Why does Chalcedony hold the 5th spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it embodied the connection between word and power. Romans believed it granted eloquence in public speech. In Mesopotamian rituals, it was engraved with prayers and worn as a charm to ward off anger and strife. Early Christians associated it with brotherhood and harmony, setting it into rings as a reminder of unity. Unlike stones of war or wealth, Chalcedony's sacredness came from its role in shaping words, the very tools of persuasion, law, and ritual. Perhaps Chalcedony's enduring significance lies in this symbolic role. It gave voice to those who carried it. From seals pressed into clay tablets to pendants worn by speakers, it was a reminder that words could shape destinies. If you've ever seen Chalcedony jewelry, whether in antique markets or museums, share your impressions in the comments, because each story adds to the living memory of this subtle but powerful stone. And before we close, let me ask, by the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Continue the debate not only here on YouTube, but in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where discussions about the gemstone of the future are already sparking curiosity. Serpentine, the serpent stone that guarded ancient rituals. Imagine a stone the color of mossy forests and coiled serpents, polished into amulets that priests carried into temples and warriors wore into battle. This is serpentine, the so-called serpent stone, a gem long believed to protect its bearer from poison, snakebite, and even sorcery. Ancient civilizations carved it into ritual objects, convinced it could harness the Earth's primal energy. And if it surprises you that such a humble green stone was once held sacred, leave a comment, because your reaction helps keep this legend alive. Geographically, serpentine is widespread, but its most significant ancient sources were in China, Mesoamerica, and the Mediterranean world. In China, serpentine carvings date back thousands of years, often mistaken for jade but valued for its own spiritual qualities. In Mesoamerica, serpentine was revered by the Olmecs and Mayans, who carved masks and figurines symbolizing rebirth and the cycle of life. Across Europe, serpentine was worn as an amulet to protect against venom and dark magic. Mining serpentine was relatively straightforward compared to harder stones. Found in metamorphic rocks, serpentine occurs in massive green deposits, sometimes veined or marbled with darker streaks. Ancient quarry workers used stone and bronze tools to cut blocks of serpentine, which artisans then shaped into ritual objects. Because it is softer than jade, it was easier to carve, making it ideal for detailed figurines, seals, and sacred ornaments. What makes serpentine visually striking is its variety. It appears in shades of olive green, yellow-green, or dark forest tones, often with a mottled or patterned appearance reminiscent of reptile scales. This resemblance to snakes gave rise to its name and its mystical reputation. Polished serpentine reveals a waxy, silky luster with a texture that feels almost alive under the hand. Figurines and carvings made from serpentine often took on symbolic forms, such as serpents, fertility idols, or sacred masks? Why does serpentine hold the fourth spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it represents humanity's timeless fear and fascination with serpents, creatures both feared for their venom and revered for their power of renewal. In Chinese tradition, serpentine was associated with the balance of yin and yang, thereby grounding spiritual energy. In Mesoamerica, it was associated with Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity, symbolizing rebirth and cosmic order. In Europe, amulets of serpentine were believed to protect farmers and hunters from snake bites. Across cultures, serpentine bridged the line between danger and protection. Perhaps serpentine's most significant legacy is this paradox. It is a stone that resembles the serpent, yet shields against it, feared for its likeness, yet revered for its protection. If you've ever seen or handled serpentine carvings, whether in museums or jewelry markets, share your impressions in the comments, because your story continues the dialogue of this serpent's gem. And before we close, consider this. By the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Let's carry this conversation beyond YouTube into gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future are more alive than ever. Peridot, the sun's gem that illuminated ancient temples. Imagine standing on a remote island in the Red Sea, where miners once dug by torchlight under a sky filled with stars, searching for a gem they believed captured the very light of the sun. That gem is Peridot, long known as the sun's gem. The ancient Egyptians referred to it as the gem of the sun god Ra, utilizing it in temples, jewelry, and as protective amulets. And if it surprises you that a bright green stone once held such profound cosmic significance, please leave a comment, as your perspective helps keep the legend of Peridot alive. Geographically, Peridot's most famous ancient source was Zabergad Island, also known as St. John's Island, in the Red Sea off the coast of Egypt. For over 3,500 years, this remote island produced brilliant green crystals that were guarded so closely that trespassers faced death. In medieval Europe, many gems thought to be emeralds and church treasures were later discovered to be peridots from this very island. Today, peridot is mined in Pakistan, Myanmar, the United States, specifically in Arizona, and China. However, none carry the same mythic aura as the stones of Zabargad. Mining peridot in antiquity was both dangerous and mystical. Records suggest workers were forced to mine by night, as the gems were said to glow in the dark and reveal themselves under torchlight. Extracting them meant breaking apart volcanic rock where olivine crystals formed deep within the earth. These crystals, brought to the surface by volcanic activity, were prized for their fiery green brilliance. Peridot's beauty lies in its color, a radiant green with golden undertones, sometimes described as green fire. Unlike many gems, peridot's hue comes from its chemical composition, not trace impurities. This means its color is consistent, glowing vividly in both sunlight and lamplight. Most stones are cut into faceted gems to highlight their brilliance, although ancient artisans often polish them into smooth cabochons and set them in gold. Large crystals were carved into ceremonial objects, believed to channel the sun's life-giving energy. Why does peridot hold the third spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because across cultures, it symbolized light, healing, and divine favor. To the Egyptians, it was sacred to Ra and used in temple decorations, worn as protection against evil spirits. In medieval times, it was set into church treasures as a stone of purity and illumination. Sailors carried it to calm storms, while healers believed it could ward off nightmares and bring peace to the soul. Peridot was not just a gem of beauty, but a cosmic stone, a fragment of sunlight crystallized in the earth. Peridot's enduring allure lies in this paradox. It was born from fire within the earth, yet revered as a gift of the sun in the sky. If you've ever seen or worn peridot jewelry, share your experience in the comments, because every story adds to the living memory of this radiant stone. And before we close, consider this. By the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Let's continue this debate not only here on YouTube, but also in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where conversations about the gemstone of the future are sparking passionate discussion. Garnet, the stone of resurrection that lit the path of warriors and kings. Imagine holding a gem that glows like burning embers, fiery red, unyielding, and eternal. This is garnet, long called the stone of resurrection. Ancient warriors carried it into battle, believing it could protect them in life and guide them in death. Vikings buried it with their fallen so the soul might find its way to Valhalla. Across cultures, garnet symbolized rebirth, eternal fire, and the power of renewal. And if it surprises you that such a stone was tied so closely to both life and death, leave a comment because your reflection keeps this legend alive. Geographically, garnet has been found in many corners of the world. In antiquity, it was mined in India, Egypt, and Sri Lanka, traded along the Silk Road into the Middle East and Europe. During the Viking Age, garnet traveled from Central Asia to Scandinavia, where it was used to adorn weapons, helmets, and jewelry. Today, notable deposits lie in Africa, Namibia, Tanzania, Russia, and the United States. But its sacred legacy belongs to the warriors, priests, and kings of the past. Mining garnet was never as perilous as diamond shafts, yet it demanded patience. Found in riverbeds and metamorphic rocks, garnet crystals were pried loose by hand, often small but radiant. Their durability made them ideal for carving seals and inlays, while their fiery glow ensured they became symbols of power and prestige. In India, garnet was even powdered into medicines, believed to heal blood disorders and restore vitality. Garnet's beauty lies in its spectrum of color. While most people are familiar with the deep red varieties, garnet also appears in a range of colors, including orange, green, and purple. The red stones, however, carry the strongest associations with blood, fire, and eternal life. Their natural dodecahedral crystal forms fascinated ancient artisans, who polished them into cabochons or facetted them into gems that sparkled like drops of flame. Why does garnet hold the second spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it embodies the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. To the Vikings, garnet lit the way to the afterlife. In Christianity, it was seen as a symbol of Christ's sacrifice and resurrection, often set into medieval reliquaries. In Hindu traditions, the garnet is associated with the root chakra, representing the grounding of life force and renewal. Few stones traveled across so many cultures with such consistent symbolism. Garnet was always tied to fire, blood, and the eternal spirit. Perhaps garnet's most significant power lies in its endurance. It is both ancient and eternal, carried from tombs to temples, from warriors to kings. If you've ever seen garnet jewelry or held its deep red glow in your hand, share your experience in the comments, because your story helps keep alive the fire of this sacred stone. And before we close, consider this. By the year 2026, could another gemstone surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Continue this conversation here on YouTube and extend it into gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future are igniting new sparks. Chrysoprase, the stone of Venus that promised love and divine favor. Imagine a stone so luminous that the ancients believed it carried the very essence of spring, a gem that shimmered with the promise of renewal, love, and divine favor. This is chrysoprase, also known as the stone of Venus. From Greek temples to European courts, it was believed to open hearts, attract fortune, and connect mortals with the goddess of beauty herself. And if it surprises you that this soft green gem once stood at the center of sacred myth, leave a comment because your perspective adds to the story of this extraordinary stone. Geographically, chrysoprase has been discovered in many places, but some of the finest ancient sources were in Central Europe, particularly Silesia, modern-day Poland, and the Czech Republic. Deposits were also known in Greece and Rome, where the stone was traded through extensive networks to be used in jewelry and talismans. Today, significant deposits can be found in Australia, Brazil, Tanzania, and Russia, with Australia producing some of the most vivid apple green specimens. But it is the stones of antiquity, carried in rituals and amulets, that shaped chrysoprase's sacred identity. Mining chrysoprase in antiquity was often a matter of luck. The gem forms within nickel-rich rocks, its green color owed to trace amounts of nickel and chalcedony. Ancient miners would break open boulders to discover nodules glowing with a soft, waxy green interior. Unlike harder stones, chrysoprase could be polished easily, making it a favorite for engravings, seals, and ornaments. What makes chrysoprase so captivating is its color, a fresh, apple-green glow that seems to radiate life. Unlike emerald's fiery brilliance, chrysoprase offers a softer, almost dreamlike translucence. When polished, it carries a silky luster, appearing both calming and vibrant. Ancient jewelers shaped it into beads, cabochons, and amulets, often engraved with symbols of Venus or fertility. In Rome, it was said to enhance eloquence, while in the Middle Ages, it was believed to banish greed and envy. Why does chrysoprase hold the #1 spot in our top 10 sacred gemstones in ancient myths and rituals? Because it was not only seen as beautiful, but as divinely blessed. The Greeks associated it with Aphrodite, Venus, goddess of love and desire, making it a sacred charm in rituals of attraction and devotion. In Central Europe, chrysoprase became a stone of kings. Frederick the Great of Prussia adored it, decorating palaces and jewelry with its glowing green fire. Across cultures, it symbolized renewal, prosperity, and sacred favor, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. Chrysoprase's most significant legacy lies in its balance of serenity and power. It did not dazzle with brilliance like a diamond or a ruby. Still, it captured the imagination of civilizations by offering something rarer, the promise of harmony, love, and divine connection. If you have ever worn or seen chrysoprase, share your impressions in the comments, because each story helps keep alive the legend of this stone of Venus. And before we close this countdown, let me ask you, by the year 2026, do you believe another gemstone could rise to surpass even the diamond as the ultimate symbol of value and power? Join this conversation not only here on YouTube, but also in gemstone communities on Facebook and Reddit, where debates about the gemstone of the future are sparking curiosity and imagination worldwide. And that concludes our journey through the 10 sacred gemstones of ancient myths and rituals. From stones believed to heal and protect, to gems carried into temples and royal tombs, each one reminds us of humanity's enduring quest for meaning in the treasures of the earth. If you enjoyed this exploration, please like the video and subscribe to World of Gem. Your support gives us the motivation to keep uncovering more hidden histories and bringing these stories to life. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. In our next episode, we'll take another step into the mysterious world of gems, uncovering the forgotten stones that were once used as ancient currency long before coins or gold existed. Until then, stay curious, share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you again in the next adventure into the world of gem.